Fremont family, and welcome to our Sermon Discussion Podcast, where we are discussing the sermon that took place on September 14th, titled, "And He Rested." The main idea is God takes up His rest so we can rest in Him, is what we will use to structure our conversation is the bullet points, which number 1 is God rested to delight in His finished work. Number 2, God calls us to rest and delight in Him. And number 3, God dwells with those who rest in Him. We'll be discussing Genesis 2, 1 through 3. My name is Holly Winkle, and I'm the Communications Director.
My name is Dan Lee, and I'm an elder at Fremont Presbyterian.
And my name is Adam Willard. I am the Minister for Missions and Evangelism here at Fremont.
And you just got back from a mission trip, right?
Yes. Just a couple of days ago, we were down in Dominican Republic working with one of our partners there that's mostly a Haitian organization, local Haitian-run organization. But yeah, now they're doing a lot of ministry amongst the Haitian population within Dominican Republic.
Wonderful. So glad that you got to go and experience that. Thank you guys both for being here, and looking forward to today's discussion. Adam, do you mind reading the verses for us?
Yeah. So the verses today are coming from Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, and I'm reading from the ESV version. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished His work that He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work that He had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all His work that He had done in creation."
Pastor Matthew compared this to the resolution of a narrative structure. And so this is the end portion of the story. And he said that it is the new sense of normal. It's usually the cycle that you go through when you're looking at narratives. And even when you're trying to find structure in scripture, when you're studying it, you look for the beginning, and that goes all the way up to the climax. But then there's a new normal that's introduced. And that's what this portion is pointing to, the rest that God enters in. And then we're the ones that then get to join God in that rest. And so it just shows how important that rest is to God, that He has it here as the final end cap, that new normal, something that we're supposed to live into day to day.
I also like how Pastor Matthew pointed out that the importance of the number 7, which there are certain recurring numbers in the Bible, and 7 is one of them. And he pointed out that the number 7 symbolizes wholeness and completion, meaning, okay,
it looks good to me.
Yeah, we're done. And so it's time to rest, and meaning we're settling into something.
Yeah, yes, that term, settling in, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't just create it to create it, but He created it to enjoy it, and so He rested in it. Yeah. I like the number 7, and he brought up all of those different areas that the number 7 is in there. We can get mega nerdy and go through all of that. But another thing is that in Leviticus 23, the Lord was speaking to Moses, and He was speaking to them about the appointed feasts of the Lord, which all of those feasts point to Jesus. But the main purpose of them and what undergirded them was the Sabbath. And so there was the 7 feasts of the Lord, the Sabbath, Passover, first fruits, weeks, trumpets, Day of Atonement, and booths. And all of these had elements of the Sabbath within it, so that the rest is supposed to be a joy. It's a delight. I was reading this with my daughter because we're reading the Bible together, and we're still in Leviticus. and I was like, "See, Evelyn, even back then, they got a day off from work and a day off from school. Like they didn't." And she's like, "Really? Wow." I'm like, "Those were their holidays." And so,
yes, yes. I'm glad you used the word holiday, which is holy day, and God specifically says that the Sabbath is a holy day. He has made it holy.
Yeah, so I think that that's probably the challenge for modern America, is how do we live out a holy day once a week, which we should be living holy lives all the time, but we have to take some time to rest, slow down, and that's not the habit or natural or culture. Think about the American culture. It's incredibly jam-packed with all kinds of activities and things, and that's what therefore makes you seem successful, is if you're doing all of those things, but it's just a different pace.
I think that's something I've struggled with, is even when I do have the time off and I'm just sitting there relaxing or resting, I actually just deleted social media from my phone for this reason, because I'd find myself
Woo!
on my
Way to go.
resting time just sitting there
Smart.
like mindlessly scrolling,
Yeah.
which is, it's not restful. Like it was not getting my mind to the place that my mind needed to be with rest. And I've been having a lot of talks with my teenagers about this too, about it's okay to not constantly be putting stuff in, to just sit there and rest and relax and just kind of just to be.
Yeah. You know, my daughter's definition of rest is sitting on the couch in front of a TV show. And my definition of rest is, you know, laying on the bed, meditating on the word. And
yes,
it's different. But when I was younger, that was my same definition of rest, right? So I think that, you know, I'm not going to say that, you know, she's worse off or anything like that. But I think that that's something that, Adam, you're right. We have to cultivate the environment and teach our children what true rest is.
Yeah. Pastor Matthew also said, that, I wrote this down. She said, God dwells with those who rest in him, specifically in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are observing the Sabbath, is God there?
I'll tell you, when I first became a Christian, God really, this was a central part of my forming and shaping. Is, you know, when you start reading the Bible, I started reading it and I read it cover to cover multiple times. But as I was reading it, the things that stood out to me and I was getting convicted of was the Sabbath, and it was having regular rest. And then I had to go through the challenges of like saying, okay, I'm going to do this. And then all of the tests come up where, you know, birthday party or let's go on this hiking adventure or whatever comes up. And I had to say no because I had to prioritize rest. And when I started to do that, that's when God started to bless me in those moments, when he refreshed me supernaturally and would give me wisdom in those quiet moments or answer my prayers. And I would hear clearly from him because I allowed for that space. And I think that when we are leaders or in ministry or are seeking God in any way, we have to create that space to be able to hear clearly from our Father and to be rejuvenated.
When you rest, rejuvenate. I like that word.
Yeah.
Rejuvenation.
Yeah.
And it comes from communing with God, praying, studying his word, fellowshipping with other believers, and it's so important.
Yeah, I think different seasons of life. I think that's one of the things we've been trying to figure out since we got here. We just arrived here in California, 2 months ago now?
Mm-hmm.
And after living overseas for the last 12 years and trying to figure out what does like rest look like for us here, because it's different. Our schedules are different. Our kids are involved in a lot more going on outside of school and on the weekends and all that kind of stuff. So trying to figure out how we can rejuvenate with all of our different schedules going in opposite directions.
Yeah. And you have a big family too, so it's challenging. Different age ranges and all the activities.
Yeah.
Resting is also not just for yourself. If you have a family, if you have guests, the fourth commandment, I'm looking at Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. I'll read from it. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
I love that because, you know what? God cares about rest for men and women, old and young, slaves, foreigners,
livestock,
workers, even the livestock. And I was thinking about that too, because he blessed the birds of the air and the animals of the sea, and he blessed humans, be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
And so we're not supposed to overwork even the help, and everybody deserves a rest. It's not just like, you know, just these few people. It's everybody. And also, have you guys heard of like the year of Jubilee? And then when even like the land has to rest. So even you're not supposed to harvest all the time. You're supposed to even allow the land to rest. It's written in how he created the earth that even the nutrients in the earth and in the soil need to rejuvenate, just as we do as well. So Adam, I'm curious about what the culture is like in Africa regarding Sabbath.
Yeah, it varies. We lived in 3 different countries, 5 different locations within those 3 countries, and it varies from place to place. But I think one thing that really stood out is actually, specifically with pastors, how hard it was for them to have a Sabbath. It was actually very often, a lot of times we hear about things like, a slower pace of life, which is generally true. But at the same time, there were no like off days, especially when we lived in the villages and the rural places. They were the go-to for so many things. And in a communal society, anytime somebody had a need or a question or whatever, they were coming up to them, and they're all just living together within walking distance of each other. And so they really, really, really struggled to get a break, to the point where for them, their Sabbath, for them, a time to rest and rejuvenate and to concentrate on God, was where we lived. People had their townhomes, their homes within the village, and then all their gardens were outside of the village, anywhere from 1.5 miles to 10 to 12 miles away. And they had another home out there, and usually when they'd go to their gardens, they'd rest. So even though they were technically doing manual labor, every single one of them said, like, this is where we come to get our rest. Because if we're at our house in town, it's a never-ending bombardment of stuff. But when they go out to their gardens to do manual labor, that was how they found their rest, because it was just quiet. It could be just them and their families, and it was interesting to see, because also there was no such thing as vacation or going on a vacation somewhere. That wasn't something that was part of that culture or just a reality of life. And it kind of raised a lot of questions in me, like, if the goal is to rejuvenate and replenish and refresh, like, what does that look like for each individual? And even each individual in a family. Like, we're 6 people in our family. Yeah. It doesn't look the same for me that it does my wife, that it does my kids. And so how do we practice Sabbath together as a family? And we're still trying to figure out the answer to that one.
Well, we don't want to get legalistic like the Pharisees did.
Well,
They had hundreds, if not thousands, of rules on what you can and cannot do on the Sabbath. And
well, that's where relationship comes in, right? And we know,
and Jesus healed on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees called him out on that, and Jesus said, no, you guys have it all wrong.
Yeah, he said he's the Lord of the Sabbath. And then Pastor Matthew also brought up the John 5:17, where he says, my Father is working until now, and I am working. And I love how he then tied that to the crucifixion. Then was when he said, it is finished. That was the finishing of his work. And then we see in Hebrews 1:3, he sat down at the right hand and settles in as ruler. And so I liked how that there was that flow there that kind of showed, if you were to zoom out and see Jesus coming to this earth and doing his work and what that looked like.
Yeah. And another question is, does the Sabbath have to be on a Sunday? We celebrate Sabbath on a Sunday. Jewish people, their Sabbath is on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then there's another question. All right, suppose you have a job like a law enforcement hospital, where you may be working on a Saturday or Sunday. Okay, how does this fit into the picture?
Or restaurants or
whatever.
Yeah. Our church where we went in New Orleans actually had a Saturday night service and a Sunday morning service specifically to give people more options on that one.
Yeah, I celebrate mine on a Saturday, and then I work my schedule, my week around, my 6 days. My 6 days of work, it starts on Sunday.
I'm thinking, all right, in those circumstances, all right, let's not be legalistic about what day you celebrate your Sabbath, but you should have a Sabbath, a day of rest, whatever day that may be, so that you can rest in the Lord and refresh yourself.
Yeah.
I think Actually, my when I was in seminary, we had to go attend a worship service at different religions, at houses of worship for different religions. And when I went to the Jewish synagogue, the time I went, that was actually what the talk was on Sabbath. And the guys,
it'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, his main point of it was there's no reason, we don't need to be legalistic about it's on this
Which
day of the week.
Yeah.
The point is that it's like that gets back to like the letter of the law versus the heart of the law.
Exactly.
And he was like, as long as we're taking a Sabbath, it might look different week to week, or it might look different, for person to person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It could change from week to week because the people who are like in law enforcement or hospitals, they get scheduled different shifts per week, and so it may be on a different day of the week. But yeah, absolutely, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think one thing we used to practice when we lived, especially in the villages where life was just so much more on top of you, was we tried to, instead of having a full day, we found out that having a full day of Sabbath was virtually impossible. So our goal would be to just have 2 different afternoons a week where we could retreat, could just kind of close in away from people.
Yeah.
Because a full day was never going to happen. But so just trying to modify and just see what we can do.
Yeah, but still, I mean, the idea is you want to devote as much time as you can on a day to focus on God and communicate with Him.
Yeah. One of the things that was we talked about was, or actually I have a note here, I wrote it down. It says, trust the finished work of God and follow His example, and about the Sabbath. And I was thinking about, Pastor Matthew did bring up the Exodus, and the Israelites were basically slavery. They were in slavery, so they work, and God had just delivered them from that, and now He's providing for them in the wilderness, becoming their God. They're no longer, trapped under Pharaoh, but they are free, and God puts this regulation that they can work on the Sabbath. And one of the things that He does is He provides manna in the wilderness, and He tells them to, they collect the manna and then on the 6th day, extra manna came down for them to collect extra for the day, for the Sabbath, so that they could rest. And God, that was part of His faithful cycle of providing for them. But during the week, if anybody collected more than they needed, it became stinky and rot with worms, right?
Yeah.
And that was then showing a lack of trust in God's provision. And so I think oftentimes if we over engage in all of the activities that we do in life, it's like what is that called? A FOMO, fear of missing out. People are afraid of missing out. And so they overbook, or they do all these things. And I want to see my kids in these sports, and they've got these birthday parties and all of these things. And so it's almost like we're trusting in those things to give us a full, satisfying life, rather than saying like, hey, if we sacrifice here and say no to that, we can trust that God will give us everything that we need and fill us and sustain us with what He wants to give us, that we don't have to try and create that ourselves. And so I think that trusting in the Sabbath is, and honoring the Sabbath is trusting in God's provision for us and our health.
I'm still blown away by God making it a commandment.
Yeah, He cares about it.
Yeah, he cares about it, but there's a commandment that says, one day,
I think
rest, relax.
Yeah, I think it's because God knows our limitations. We're just humans. And you guys know in Psalm 23, it says that He will make us lie down in green pastures. And so if we don't honor the Sabbath, guess what happens? Yeah, you get sick. And then He makes you lie down.
I never noticed that. That's a good observation. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you had to take off work the other day because you got sick. And it's like, oh, you had a mandatory Sabbath.
Yes, I did. And I just stayed home and rested and lied down
in green pastures.
Had my feet. Well, not exactly.
Oh yeah, you probably weren't feeling well.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you just said about this. So much of it has to do with trust.
Yeah.
Like if we're not taking breaks, or if we're not ever resting or rejuvenating or just taking time to focus on God, then what does that say about our trust in Him versus our trust in the things that we can do?
Yeah. Speaking of green pastures, I was thinking about, okay, day 7, It was meant to go on. And I imagine a nice sunny day in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Everything is all good. There's no night. And that's what God intended for us.
Yeah.
And we had to go and ruin it.
Oh, I know. The conversations we'll have with Adam and Eve when we enter into heaven.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, that is one of my most blessed times when I'm out camping or out in the wilderness, and I and just enjoy the beauty of God's creation. It's really restful. I get refreshed. Being in God's creation and appreciating what He has created. Oh my goodness, this is so beautiful.
Right. And there's different ways that we each feel refreshed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of them. Yeah. Yeah. I love that that Pastor Matthew brought up about, the day never ended. Day 7, it didn't have that typical repeating pattern where it says, and there was night, and then and there was day, and there was night. That wasn't evening and morning, excuse me.
Yes.
Evening and morning. And then he pointed all the way to Revelation 21, which we know that the glory of God gives us the light in the new heavens and the new earth, and that the lamp is the Lamb, and that there is no night. And so we're supposed to be, the original intention for creation is for us to be in that rest with God, in relationship, in His presence the entire time. And so, yes, Adam and Eve and we, humanity, we mess that up, but there's hope that that's where we will end up. So what would you guys say is your final takeaway?
I would say, I think just when Pastor Matthew was talking about how in those verses on the Sabbath, there is no end. Like it's not like a regular day. And it does. And then linking that back to in Revelation, where he was talking about kind of the end times and once we all get to heaven, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have to do work here on earth, but we should still take those times of Sabbath. That is, I just found that was incredibly interesting. That it's like I said before, it's one of those things that you read over and over and it never sinks in until somebody points out to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so I think it's twofold. One, if you're looking at it from the eternal perspective of that's what it will be like one day in heaven. But then if you're looking at it here and now, like we don't need to limit our Sabbaths. Like that is a mandatory Sabbath. I think this is something we struggled with a lot of people in ministry when I was overseas. Was we forced people to take a Sabbath because some people wouldn't. But it didn't mean that you couldn't also take time to abide with God. And be with God and rejuvenate during those other 6 days of the week. Like if you need that throughout the week, you take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a few takeaways. One thing Pastor Matthew also mentioned that observing the Sabbath is not something we do to attain greater status with God.
Yeah.
It's like the Pharisees. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I must be holy. But the main point, God sets the example. God takes up His rest so that we can rest in Him. And so the point of the Sabbath is to rest in the Lord, not rest just for the sake of not doing anything and being idle.
Yes, I know that He made the day holy. And I guess for my main takeaway too, one of the things that is written on the priests, I don't know what you would call it, turban that they wear in the tabernacle, it says on there, holy to Yahweh. And there's certain things that God cares about in a special way that He will set apart as holy. He set apart His priests as holy, His temples as holy, and He set apart this day as holy. Yeah. And we get to enjoy that. And so the Sabbaths I really look forward to them because I just get a great rest because I rest in Him and I experience God's presence in those moments. And I feel the nearness and closeness that it's something that just really strengthens my relationship with God. And so I'm grateful for that. And He has worked out with me so that it isn't legalistic, because there are some times where I'm like, well, I'm not even going to do those dishes. And then like the cat would barf on the ground. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to clean that up. That's work. No, you can't just leave barf on the ground. So I mean, God will work in each individual and helping them grow into it. But the thing that really is our eternal hope is that we have that final Sabbath rest. And so I'm just going to close with Hebrews 4, 9 through 11, which says, "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience." And so we know that we have the hope to enter the final rest with our Lord and Jesus Christ, our Savior, and that is the eternal hope. And
Amen.
so, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to next week's Sermon Discussion podcast.